Welcome to McDougall. On today's show, coping with menopause. Hello, I'm Wayne Judd. And now a French fry's worst enemy, Dr. John. So you're a French fry's worst enemy.
I don't know how you come up with these, I'll tell you.
I think you're probably the enemy of all French fries. Have you ever found a good French fry, John?
You know, you can make French fries in a very healthy way. We call them golden brown potatoes. What you do is you just cut the potatoes, put them in the oven, bake them, and turn them over so they get brown on both sides. And then you can take and dip them in your favorite condiments. For example, people enjoy having ketchup with French fries. You can get a fairly healthy ketchup. And so you don't have to be deprived just to be healthy. There's all kinds of delicious food.
And a potato is such a wonderful food, isn't it?
Potatoes are great food.
I call potato the bread of the gods.
You realize I'm
wonderful
Irish,
food.
don't you?
Oh,
so
well, there
if
you
I
are.
had one food to live on, not just because of my ancestry, but if I had one food to live on because of its nutritional benefits, it would be potatoes. They did experiments back in the 1930s where they raised people on potatoes as the sole source of nutrient. And all the protein, all the vitamins, all the minerals came from potatoes. At the end of the 6-month experiment, they declared these people in excellent health. Now, they did have to make one variation, though. Because the potato is so bulky and low in calories, they had to add oil to the diet to bring the calories up. But see, when you add oil to the diet, you add an empty calorie source, and so you dilute out the protein, vitamins, and minerals that's supplied by the potato.
So they were actually doing damage by doing this?
Well, not really doing damage, but it decreased the nutritional value of the diet by adding oil to it. They just had to get the calories. In Peru, children who are orphaned, they don't have surrogate mothers, they don't have baby formula. They raise these children from 8 months of age on a diet of white potatoes. They make a formula out of white potatoes, and these children have normal growth patterns as having potatoes as the sole source of nutrients.
That's amazing.
And
they do all right.
They grow perfectly normal. Now, again, this is not a recommendation for you to eat only potatoes or to certainly put your children on potatoes as a diet, but it's an example of just how complete foods are, the way nature designed them. The potato is a complete food. It has all the vitamins, minerals, proteins, carbohydrates that you need to be in excellent health. People in New Guinea live on about 96% of their diet. The natives of New Guinea used to live on sweet potato roots and leaves.
That's amazing. Well, I like to take a potato about that big and bake it and spread it so that it fills a whole dinner plate.
Right.
And then put salsa on it about an inch thick. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, that'd be good.
Oh, I love that. That's so good.
There are other things you can put on. You can put various...
Why are we talking about potatoes? I'm
you
excited
brought
about
it up.
Well, I'm thrilled. I mean, potato is very special.
You can put steak sauces. You can put barbecue sauces on top. I'll tell you, one of my favorite things to do with potatoes is you can take a baked potato, or this could be mashed potatoes, which, by the way, I like even more. Baked potatoes.
But don't you have to smother those in butter?
No, you don't have to smother them in butter. You just beat them up, and you don't have to put milk in them, or you don't have to put butter in it. They just whip up nicely with no problem.
But they don't stick together, do they?
They stick together just fine. It's no problem at all.
Okay.
Now, let's get back to this baked potato.
All right.
Because I want to tell you one of the easiest and favorite things to do is to take leftover soup, or you can start with healthy, non-fat soup in a can, or they have these little packages that come out these days. It's kind of a box system with dehydrated vegetable soups in them. You just add water. Well, you can make one of those up, and you can make it a little thicker than you would if you were going to make it as a soup. You can dump it on the potato, and here you got an instant meal.
It's like a gravy, and it's got all the good stuff in it.
It's a great idea. And it's simple.
I'm going to run right home and
But contrast that to what you and I were taught, Wayne. When we grew up, we were taught that we needed to eat great variety. We need to have something from each of the basic 4 food groups to be an excellent
That's right.
health.
That's exactly right.
Now, think about that concept of nutrition and the consequences in our society. If that was ideal nutrition, then we'd have all trim, healthy, hardworking people with no heart disease, no diabetes, no high blood pressure.
We
have just the opposite.
Didn't work.
So we must reevaluate the concept of having this great variety in our diet. We must reevaluate it. And in the same context, look at people in other parts of the world who eat very simple diets. In Asia, their diet is mostly of rice. And in Ireland, for a long time, it was mostly potatoes, and they lived in excellent health with no obesity. So we really we need to rethink things in this whole idea of great variety.
Well, I'm glad we talked about this. It's interesting.
Well, I'm sure you are.
I am, indeed. I'm going to go home and have a potato with
since you like the potatoes
something
so much.
else on it tonight.
Well, you don't have to get stuck on potatoes either. You can do this with any starch. It can be pasta if you happen to like pasta. It can be rice if you happen to like rice. What you want to make sure you do for your diet and the diet of your children and the rest of your family is you want to make sure that starch is the centerpiece, and then vegetables and fruits are side dishes. People who try and eat healthier diets, they have great intentions, but often what they think is, I've got to eat more vegetables, and so they try and live on broccoli, cauliflower, and sprouts, and they starve to death. They say, you know, I'm not satisfied. I can't eat this way. Well, I agree. Nobody could eat that way.
No, I can't.
But if you put that potato, that starch in the centerpiece, then you've got a really, really tasty meal.
Great, great. Let's go eat.
You started it on potatoes, and I don't mind talking about.
Sounds good to me.
When we come back, we're going to talk about menopause with Dr. Jessie Henley. It's going to be a great segment, so please stay tuned.
Hello.
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 And welcome back. Menopause is a subject surrounded by many myths, and I have a woman, a physician, here to help straighten out a lot of our misunderstandings. Dr. Jessie Henley, MD. She happens to be the director of the Malibu Health Center in Malibu, California. How'd you get interested in menopause?
Strictly by numbers. There are so many women going through menopause now, John. It's the topic of the century. Many women came to me with questions, and I wasn't satisfied with the options that I had to offer to them.
Now, wait a minute. I thought it was the topic of the century because of the fact that we have two highly promoted drugs out there to treat menopause, and that's your estrogens, your hormone replacement therapy, estrogen and progestins. I thought that's why it was popular.
Well, don't be confused. I'm not in favor of the drugs, but I think it's popular because there are more women going through menopause than there are people of any other age group going through any other common experience.
So you think it's because we have an aging female population that's become so popular?
But hasn't this also been a kind of a quiet subject up until recently? Isn't there that factor too?
Absolutely. Women have been terrorized into not talking about it, treated as if they were crazy, and made to feel as if something was wrong with them as opposed to something is actually right with them. In most cultures around the world that are non-Western, and historically women have always looked forward to this time. It's been a time when their wisdom, their strength, their knowledge has been most respected, and they're most appreciated by their cultures.
Now that you brought that up, I read a medical article recently that said that menopause was really not a disease. It was really not a trouble for women in rural Japan. And the reason they said it wasn't a problem was because of their healthy diet. Do you have anything to say about that? Do you think there's any relationship there between diet and how much women suffer from menopausal symptoms?
Absolutely.
You do?
Absolutely. A diet makes a large difference in every part of a woman's health, as well as the natural estrogenic compounds that are so high in the soy diets that are very protective for our health and important to make this transition easy. So vegetarian women or women with vegetarian base in their diets, even if they're not strictly vegetarian, often have an easier time and they're healthier to begin with.
So then I would assume one of your main recommendations for your clientele, your patients, is to eat a healthy diet.
Absolutely.
This estrogen, what is that all about for the layperson? Why is that all John learned in medical school?
Yeah, estrogen, hormone replacement therapy. I mean, that was my education on menopause, is when it happens, get rid of it.
Well, two things. First, I'd like to say that menopause is a natural, like you started to allude to, is a natural transition. Perhaps it's even an initiation into a deeper power and wisdom. And in a culture where women are not valued, and when we're powerful, we're called witches, and people are scared of us, it's very important to make our symptoms go away and keep us quiet.
That's political. That gets into the political realm.
Well, so many things we could touch on today will.
But it is that way, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a woman these days who approaches 50 years old, when she walks into a doctor's office, she is forced to take estrogen therapy. And I do mean forced because the aggressiveness that a doctor goes after her is such that you couldn't use any other description.
It's very sad and it's very frightening to me. I end up spending a good deal of my first or second office visit with ladies who go way out of their way to come and see me, trying to help them understand how much information that's actually based in fact and based in research and based in history that there really is to make them comfortable to understand that estrogen replacement isn't their only option and that if they even should choose some form of estrogen and progesterone replacement, there are wonderful, healthy, natural options.
Okay, well, the first attitude to take about this whole thing is menopause is a natural thing to happen. There's a time to stop having babies, and that's when you hit menopause. And so, you know, why do you have to remove such a natural occurrence, which is basically what the medical profession has done? It's launched a war against menopause to try and get rid of it. And you obviously don't feel that's the right thing.
No, it makes a lot of money. It keeps a lot of doctors in business with their yearly
well,
checkups so that they feel safe.
We finally have a drug that works, and so you can't blame us for wanting to prescribe it.
Us. It's so funny to hear you say us, since I know you're not on that side. One of the things that's been very striking for me, shocking to me really, as I've gone through my updated education with menopause being one of my teachers, is that the majority of information that was in my medical texts, in your medical texts, and the majority of research that all of our life decisions these days are made based on by doctors was paid for by the drug companies that paid for the research that these decisions and information came from.
And they did that in a self-serving way for economic reasons.
Well, big business is like that, and so it
free
makes,
enterprise.
It makes a demand upon us to take responsibility for our own health and ask questions and seek people out that will at least be a partner with us in helping us find answers rather than shove them down our throat.
So a woman who nears menopause, she has to face whether to take hormone replacement therapy or not. And regardless of how you believe every woman or most women are going to be in that particular situation, what are some of the things that she should be thinking about in terms of, should I take this? Are there some advantages to me? Or should I maybe pass on it or delay taking hormone replacement therapy?
I think the place to begin is to know that menopause does not begin when a woman's last period happens, which is usually by reflection. We look back over our shoulder and realize the hormonal changes that end up marking menopause as an end of the normal ovarian function we usually think of actually start in our 30s, start in our late 30s with the beginnings of bone loss that are often paralleled by PMS. I call PMS the goddess's gift. I think that it's the teacher that begins to prepare a woman to be comfortable with her more sensitive nature, so that by the time she gets to menopause, she's prepared for the initiation of all the wisdom and all the power that this transition brings.
Well, do you ever prescribe hormone replacement therapy, the kind that most doctors prescribe, estrogens and progestins to women in your practice?
I try not to prescribe the drugs. I work with the natural hormones, whether it's from herbs or in transdermal creams quite often, but I don't see that every woman needs to take some. But I do know that historically, before women were burned at the stake for having knowledge about healing, women knew what to do in every transition of life, whether it was their children's ear infections, childbirth, or menopause. And so they knew what foods to eat in more abundance at this time of life, what herbs from their natural sources more suited them.
Well, Dr. Jessie Henley, this is a very appealing message, and I know our listeners are very excited about hearing what you do to take care of this particular time. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Hello.
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 For you, but if you want to make it available to anybody, you're welcome to do that.
And welcome back. With us, Dr. Jessie Henley. She is a family practitioner, but a doctor who takes a different attitude about menopause, a more natural attitude, a more conservative attitude, and one that I know many women are excited about hearing about. A woman near 50 comes into Dr. Henley's office. What's your approach?
Well, women that come to my office about menopause usually are already coming because they don't want to have the standard alternative, which is just drugs. They're usually women who are already asking questions and reading information. So I'm not starting at scratch, and I love that. I love that the people that I take care of, but especially the ladies, are asking questions because I want them to participate with responsibility in what's ahead.
But Dr. Henley, they come in and they say, if I don't take estrogens, my bones are going to fall apart, I'm going to get osteoporosis.
Fortunately, science and research doesn't support that, John. There are some studies now that show that bone density is more dependent on progesterone stimulation, then on estrogen stimulation. Estrogen really only slows down bone loss at a very small rate for just a few years.
Well, I'm going to get a heart attack, though, if I don't take estrogens. I know it. I read it in the paper this morning.
Well, that's why I brought you a copy of a study. There's a study being done now that will be the last word on estrogen replacement for now. It's the first prospective, double-blinded study that should meet all of Western medicine's satisfaction. And Alan Gaby, another physician, was reviewing the study and found a very interesting flaw in the interpretation. They were saying that the statistics so far show, because a few risk factors were lowered, that women should therefore get less heart disease, while in the women on the estrogen replacement were the only cases of heart disease to appear in this study so far.
And there's other downsides to taking estrogen replacement therapy, isn't there?
There's many downsides. Weight gain is very common. Cancer risk increase is very common and well documented. Discomfort. Estrogen causes sodium retention. It causes water retention. And we can retain water in our brain as well as our breast or any other tissue of our body. And most women are given too much estrogen. It's just a standard dose. We do it to make women's emotional and physical symptoms go away, but we're not looking to see, in general, if that's the best, if that's actually what's best for them.
And let's take a phone call. Caller, you have a question for Dr. Henley?
Yes, I do. I just started watching your show, and I've been on Premarin for a year. I'm 49 years old, and I'm wondering, why would my doctor tell me that I need this hormonal therapy if it's so harmful?
That's what our doctors, including my education, has been to teach me. It's, if you have high blood pressure, you take a blood pressure medicine instead of change your lifestyle, change your diet as the primary source. So with menopause, doctors are taught to intervene with drugs. That's their education. If you go to a doctor, you usually get information, and we're an exception, thank goodness. You get information usually about what drug to take. If you went to a naturopath, you'd find out the natural sources of what to do with that same position and condition and be able to change your outcome and hopefully your health.
Well, would it be good for me to get off of that now?
It would be hard for me to answer for you specifically. I really try and tailor my programs for each lady specifically for her wishes, her needs, and her health condition, but I would never put a woman on just estrogen. It's very important to have a progesterone along with estrogen. We're cyclic beings. It's natural for us to cycle. Until Mother Nature tells me there's a better way, and I hear very clearly, I will always use progesterone with estrogen. And when progesterone is added to estrogen, we see less incidence of cancer. And our uteruses, even if you don't have your uterus, our uterus is not the only organ in our body that responds to progesterone. Our breast, our brains, our emotions, our joints. So I always use both if I'm going to use both.
Does that answer your question, caller?
Yes, thank you.
No, thank you very much for calling. One of the things that happens when a woman takes estrogen replacement therapy in her postmenopausal years is she has menstrual periods. Mm-hmm. And so we have 75, 80-year-old women still having menstrual periods, which to me sounds rather unnatural. And the way the medical business has answered that is they have gotten rid of the cyclic nature of estrogen and progesterone and give it to them all the time. What do you think about that?
Actually, it scares me, John. I think it's very unnatural and unhealthy, and yet there are some women who do not want to be bothered with their feminine nature and their cycling. Oftentimes, when I provide estrogen replacement for women with more natural herbs or the transdermal therapies, women don't go on to have menstrual cycles and bleeding like normal periods forever, just for a matter of time.
Okay, is it fair to say that a woman has a choice of just going through menopause like women have done for 4 million years? Okay, that's a fair choice. Or they have the opportunity, if they want to get certain advantages of herbal medicines, or if they're having symptoms, to take certain herbal medications. What are the preparations that you, Dr. Henley, prescribe to women that help them through this time of life, and what benefits do they get?
Well, I'd love to start with diet, since that's a favorite place of yours.
Oh, I like that.
I really think that diet is important. I've seen so many women, when they give up their high-fat, the destructive high-fat diets, that their liver works better, their body eliminates toxins better, and a whole aspect of their symptomatology decreases. They're having less problems because their body works better to begin with, and they can see more clearly through the fog what they want and what they need.
Plus, they reduce their risk of having heart disease, which they're being sold estrogens for, and they reduce their risk of osteoporosis, which is the other things they're sold the estrogens for.
And cancer, because in our food chain now are so many dangerous chemicals that mimic estrogen in dangerous ways in our bodies, that some of the medical schools have started doing studies proving that these organochlorines, pesticides, herbicides that are so prevalent, especially in animal fats, but in all the fats in our diet,
All right, good diet.
are lodging
How about
in our body.
supplements?
I try and put everybody on a multiple vitamin since we're coming from such a deficient food source.
I was thinking more of hormone supplements. You say there's some natural hormone supplements that we could use.
There's some wonderful natural herbal hormone supplements on the market. Do you want brand names?
Well, there's generally you can get estrogens, can you?
You mean in herbs?
In herbs, can you?
There are a number of herbs that are estrogenic, and once again, just like I wouldn't have a woman use just estrogen, I wouldn't have a woman buy an herbal formula that had just estrogen.
And
I
there are
would want her to
progestins?
make sure that it had Vitex, which is a wonderful herbal progesterone source, or sarsaparilla, or wild Mexican yam, along
wait a
with the
minute.
many estrogenic herbs.
I didn't learn about those in medical school, so when the woman comes to see me, I'm going to have a pretty tough time. So maybe when we come back, you can explain to us, Dr. Jessie Henley, how we can get our physician to respond to this. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Thanks for watching Hello Channel. Learn the language of the internet, travel, commerce, and diplomacy. Watch Hello Channel and learn English. Do it for yourself.
And welcome back. Dr. Jessie Henley is with us. We're talking about menopause, so everybody can't go see Dr. Henley.
That's right, and it strikes me that one of the big challenges is how in the world do women get help when the physicians themselves are reluctant to...
Well, maybe not. They just don't have the knowledge, too. Let's be fair to doctors like myself. I didn't get this information.
And the information is becoming more available. I've been working with some obstetricians and gynecologists in their education, and the first part is finding someone with an open mind. But once again, these are natural substances. We don't have to only get them from our MD. What we need an MD for is to participate as a partner and observe and monitor. That way we teach the MD as we go through the process.
There's a videotape that you starred in. I assume you were one of the stars. It's called Menopause. Now, you got your pencils ready? 1-800-760-7775 for the tape on menopause. Is there other information that comes along with it?
I don't think so.
That's basically
But a lot of women
Dr.
enjoy
Hanley,
sitting down and watching
you
with their
are a very
husband.
progressive doctor. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us.
I know everybody
Thank you.
appreciated what you had to
Thank you
say.
very much.
That was just great.